Before we get into today's video, I would like to give a shout out to one of our newest subscribers, Ricky Inglis. Thank you for joining our family, as well as all of our other subscribers that have joined us this week. I thank you. And now, on with today's video. Greetings, my dear viewers. It is I, Durihan, and welcome back to Dungeons & Dragons Character Concept Deep Dive, where we take a look at interesting character concepts a little bit more closely to see how exactly that might work. And today's concept was actually inspired by a commenter from my Barbarian Rogue multi-class video. The user Gelatinous GameCube asks, "What about a soul knife? Psychic blades are finesse, thrown, and can use strength and dexterity." And while yes, soul knife did in fact do that, the only problem with the soul knife, at least for min-maxing purposes, was the fact that the soul knife only did 1d6 damage on the first attack, and 1d4 damage as a bonus action. What we needed from the Barbarian Rogue multi-class is as much damage as possible. And the only way to do that was with a more powerful weapon, which the soul knife did not produce. Not to mention that the Assassin Rogue actually gave us automatic critical hits whenever we hit an attack with our weapons. So, unfortunately, the Soul Knife did not make the cut for that build. But that did inspire me to make a Thrown Weapons Master, aka the Living Turret. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for this living turret. To start things off, we are going to be using the standard array system for our stats. Strength will be a 15, dexterity will be a 13 for our multi-classing purposes, constitution will be a 14 just so we are still healthy, intelligence will be a 10, it's not really necessary but we don't want that extremely low either. Wisdom is going to be a 12. We need to be able to perceive our targets. Anyone that is trying to get past us will not get past us. The only thing is that our charisma is going to be rather low. When you're basically a guard, being able to get what you want from someone is not going to be possible. Now, for race, we're going to go with one that I think I should have at least included as a secondary option for our Barbarian Rogue, and that is the Half-Orc. I wanted to go with the Half-Orc for this build, and technically probably should have gone it for our optimized build because of the Half-Orc's feature, Savage Attacks. This is basically the Barbarian's brutal critical feature, but at level 1. You see, what happens with this Savage Attacks is that when we get a critical hit, we add one of the damage die from an attack into our calculations. So instead of getting, let's say we use a rapier as our weapon, if we hit a critical hit, instead of getting 2d8, we get a total of 4d8 after we have calculated our critical hit, which is pretty good, and honestly should have been one of my first thoughts, but I ended up forgetting about the Half-Orc. Anyway, we get the Savage Attacks, Relentless Endurance, which is pretty good. If we were to ever drop to 0 hit points from an attack, we instead drop to 1. We also get the skill Intimidation, which is pretty useful. We get dark vision for 60 feet and a speed of 30 feet. We get a +2 to our constitution and a +1 to our strength. We're going for the background city watch just because it's decent. We get to feature Watcher's Eye and skills of athletics and insight, as well as 2 languages of our choice. Now, if your DM allows you to grab a feat at level 1, I would recommend the Alert feat, as it gives us a +5 to our initiative roll. Moving on to the Barbarian. We're going to start at level 3 Barbarian, and I'll explain why here in just a second. We get 3d12 hit dice since we are at level 3. Our starting hit points at level 1 is 12 plus our constitution modifier, so a nice solid 15. We get proficiencies in light armor, medium armor, and shields, as well as simple and martial weapons. And saving throws in strength and constitution, and for skills, it doesn't really matter, just go with nature and survival, just to, well, see if you see anything out of the ordinary. You get your rage feature, you get your unarmored defense, which is 10, plus your dexterity, plus your constitution modifier. Currently, that is a 14, so not bad. That'll improve once we get our ability score increases, of course. We get reckless attack and danger sense, pretty useful. Now for our 3rd level ability, which is the Primal Path. We're going with Path of the Giant. I actually mentioned this to Gelatinous GameCube, and I thought it was pretty cool. Now, we already know what the Path of the Giant does because of our build with Cloudy and Nimbusman, but we'll go ahead and go over it again. We get the ability Giant Power, which gives us the Giant language and a cantrip of our choice. We'll go with Druidcraft for this one. We also get Giant's Havoc. This gives us the ability Crushing Hurl and Giant Stature. So when we rage, we increase in size to large. And Crushing Hurl allows us to deal some extra damage with throwing weapons. We also get Primal Knowledge, Intimidation. Actually, we already got Intimidation, so we would need... we'll say Animal Handling. I forgot that our half-orc already gave us Intimidation as our skill. Now for our multi-class into Rogue. This will give us 3d8 hit die, an extra 1d8 plus Constitution modifier in hit points, and we also get proficiency in 1 skill. We'll go with Stealth. For your expertise, go for Intimidation and Stealth. You also get your Sneak Attack feature, which can be added onto your attack if it is a finesse weapon or a thrown weapon. You also get your Thieves' Cant and Cunning Action. And at 3rd level, we of course get the Roguish Archetype, Soul Knife. This gives us Psionic Power, Psi-Bolstered Knack, and Psychic Whispers. We also get Psychic Blades. Now on the first attack with your Psychic Blades, it deals 1d6, like I've mentioned. And you can use a bonus action to get another Soul Knife attack, which does 1d4. And it does psychic damage, by the way, so this will be important for the build. We also get the feature Steady Aim just for being a 3rd level rogue. Now for 4th level Barbarian, we're going to go with the feat Piercer. This will increase our strength by 1, and we're grabbing Piercer because it does roughly the same thing as our race does, giving us an extra die from our weapon damage. We'll use the rapier again. So now, with the half-orc and the piercer, we get 2 extra damage die added when calculating for a critical hit. So that is a total of 3d8 before the critical hit is calculated. That means 6d8 from that rapier. Now, I decided to go with the rapier as the example because Piercer only calculates that damage for piercing weapons. So your psychic blades aren't going to get that critical hit bonus. From Piercer, it'll get it from savage attacks, but not from Piercer. At level 4 Rogue, we're going to grab the feat Thrown Arms Master. This gives us an increase to our strength score once again. Now this feat can be found in Tal'Dorei Reborn, and it is a pretty good feat. Not only do we get proficiency... Yes, it was proficiency in thrown weapons, but we get to add a ranged option to weapons that do not have the thrown property. Weapons that do have the thrown property actually get an increase in their range. That's useful. Furthermore, any weapon with the light property that we throw and misses comes back to us as if it were a boomerang. That's pretty cool. Moving on to level 5 Barbarian, we get extra attack and fast movement. Level 6 Barbarians, thanks to the Path of the Giant, get Elemental Cleaver, which gives us an additional damage on melee attacks. Notice that I said melee. Not going to really work when we're using our psychic blades, or really our thrown weapons. Well, technically it would, since, well, I did read a ruling from Jeremy Crawford that a thrown weapon does count as a melee attack. I think that's up to your DM's discretion, in all honesty. Level 7 Barbarians get Feral Instinct. Level 8 Barbarians would get an ability score improvement, but we're going to go with a feat instead. We're going with the Tavern Brawler. This is because we get not only an increase to our strength once again, but we also get a weapon proficiency in improvised weapons. So now, whenever we grab just a random item off the ground and use it as a weapon, it deals 1d4 damage. And it gains the thrown property, which we will calculate at the end of this video, by the way. Don't worry about that. But since we now have a weapon proficiency in improvised weapons, we are able to add our proficiency bonus to that weapon. At 9th level Barbarian, we get Brutal Critical. So now, using the rapier as the example again, we get a total of 4d8 to calculate for a critical hit. So that's a total of 8d8 damage just from the rapier alone. Thanks to the half-orc feature, the Piercer feat, and the Barbarian's Brutal Critical. This is the stuff I was calculating when I was doing the Barbarian Rogue multi-class video. It's insane, I'll tell you that. Moving on to level 10 Barbarian, thanks to our giant subclass, we now get Mighty Impel. This lets us throw creatures. And it's hilarious. We throw a creature to an unoccupied space within 30 feet of us, and if they are not on the ground or on a liquid surface that can support them, they drop. So if you were to throw them straight up into the air 30 feet, they take fall damage equal to that 30 feet, which is, I believe, 3d10 damage. Pretty cool. Moving on to level 5 Rogue, we get the Uncanny Dodge ability. Level 6 Rogues get Expertise. We'll go with Athletics and Insight just for simplicity. Level 7 Rogues get Evasion. So, pretty useful. Leveled 8 rogues get an ability score improvement. Go ahead and increase your strength and your dexterity each by 1, rounding them off nice and evenly. Level 9 rogues from the Soul Knife subclass get Soul Blades. Now your Soul Knives have the homing ability. You can roll your psionic die. If your Psi Blade misses its a hit, to see if it will actually hit instead. Pretty useful. You also get Psychic Teleportation, allowing you to teleport to your Soul Knife. Which, it's alright. Level 10 rogues get an ability score improvement, but we're going to skip out on that and grab a feat. The Sharpshooter feat. This will give our ranged attacks a little more oomph. Now, that is the end of this build, but I want to go ahead and calculate something. What would be the best weapon for this build? Since we do have the extra attack feature, we are able to use our Sharpshooter ability and our Piercer ability, as well as all of those critical hit dice on one weapon. So what would be the best one? Well, the Yokla would definitely be a good contender, as it does 1d8 piercing damage and has a base range of 10 feet and a long distance range of 30 feet, which, thanks to the Thrown Weapon Master feat that we got earlier, that increases that range to 30 feet and 70 feet respectively. Now, with the Thrown Weapon Master feature, a lance would be a good contender as well, as it does 1d12 damage, and while you are unmounted, you have to use 2 hands, which means that your range is limited to 15 feet to a long range of 30 feet. But while you are mounted, it counts as a one-handed weapon, which means that your range is 20 feet to 60 feet. Your improvised weapon, which is a 1d4 damage, has a normal range of 20 feet to 60 feet, thanks to the Thrown Weapon Master feat that increases to 40 feet and 100 feet. Then, of course, there is your Soul Knives, which you'll be using as your extra attack and your bonus action attack. This has a d6 and d4 respectively, and has a range of 60 feet with no long distance. No maximum distance. This increases, thanks to the Thrown Weapon Master feat, to 80 feet. So, honestly, not bad. In my opinion, if you could not get your hands on the Thrown Weapon Master feats because your Dungeon Master does not allow feats that are outside the core rulebooks, I would suggest just going with the Yokla, since it is the best option for maximum damage for your living turret. You'll get your D8, D6, and D4, as well as all of those critical hits, and also your Psi Blades are pretty good. Not gonna lie, but it's not the best. Yes, you get more damage, but you aren't getting the best damage. It's more of a flavor class than anything. Sure, if you're out of weapons, then a Soul Knife is a good option. You'll be able to use your improvised weapon, which is a D4, then come through with a Soul Knife attack. Or just do 3 Soul Knife attacks, thanks to your extra attack feature. Throw Soul Knife number 1, bonus action for Soul Knife number 2, and your extra attack feature can come in with a Soul Knife number 3. For a total of 2d6 and 1d4. Plus all those critical hits. Which, it's alright, like I said, not the best. But with that being said, I do hope that you enjoyed this build. Thursday, we are going to try to go for a video I've been mentioning this past week. Well, last week. and that is going over ability scores. So I'll see you on Thursday. Until then, this has been Drehan, and I am offline.